Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Pref Life podcast. This is your founder and CEO of Glam Girl Bikini, Amy Anger. And today I'm joined by my fabulous co host, Lee Marie Hossetter. Hey, Lee, how's it going?
Hi, it's going great. Good to be back again.
Yeah, yeah. So we took a little bit of a break because we both were in peak week and it was we it's a little bit extra during peak week. So um you're still in peak week, I guess, but
Yep,
we appreciate you coming on today because I know it
absolutely.
takes a lot. So we first wanted to just kind of like talk about some announcements that I think are pretty important in the NPC that are brand new things that even if you've competed for as long as me, these are new things that have come to the sport that I feel like it's important for our audience to know. And then we're gonna kind of recap the competition that I did in the Bahamas, in Nassau, the Caribbean Grand Prix. So well, first, it sounded like I said fart. Uh, we'll
Are
first
you back
start.
on carbs yet, Amy?
Yes, I
Or
am. I am on a slow reverse though. It's only
I
14
love it.
calories, but okay. So yeah, for this these couple of announcements, the first thing that I think is probably the most important, just in terms of another pro qualifier coming up for the natural competitors. So anybody that is looking for drug tested events to earn a pro card. Previously, it was only the Ben Weeder, but now they're going to be hosting first ever Pittsburg. Is it called Expo? Do you recall?
I
It,
don't remember what it was called.
I think it's basically the original like Pittsburgh Pro, but
Okay.
they're taking it to another level. I felt like they gave it a different name. Anyways, it's May 10th and 11th, and it's a brand new drug tested event in the NPC that you can earn pro status as a pro qualifier. So just like the Ben Weeder, which I was so excited to see that they added, just similar to the Arnold, how the Arnold's a pro qualifier and you get two pro cards for the top two overall in the Open. So they last year, previously they had only awarded one in the Open. This year they awarded first and runner up, and every category but bikini. Basically, the height class or the class winner won their pro card. So, like in wellness, if you were the winner of the 35, you got a pro card. If
Mhm.
you were in figure, you were the winner of the 40, you got a pro card. Same with the open and all of that. So, with bikini, it was a little bit bigger. They did the overall A through F in the open. Top two got the pro card. And then in the previous year, 35, they did it for the overall for 35. So A and B 35 only, even though they had like 40 plus, 50 plus. They didn't
Mhm.
award pro cards to them. But this year they added the 40 plus, which I thought was a good move because Masters is the fastest growing category.
Yeah.
And just having two height classes made it ginormous in those classes. So I think that's a great thing for the NPC. Did you want to talk about polygraph testing and that's
I
true?
was just gonna ask
Yeah.
about and maybe I just missed this, but when they were talking
Yeah.
about the announcement for the new show, the new drug tested pro qualifier, what I think is really cool about the Ben Weeder is it's a pro qualifier, but it's also a drug tested pro show
Yeah.
that qualifies you for the Olympia. Did they
Right.
say that it would be a pro show as well, or is it
That's what
just the
I
pro
was
qualifier?
that's what I was gathering because it's two different dates, but the Ben Weeder was two different dates because the women were on Friday, the men were on Saturday. So I'm not sure. I wasn't super clear on that, but huge congratulations to Lana Dunbar
Yeah.
winning her first ever pro show. And she won her pro card at the Ben Weeder. So I think it comes full circle that she would win her Olympia qualification here this past weekend there. And she's previously been to the Olympia, but it was when we had the point system and she had to do so many shows, rack
Mhm.
up so many points. I mean, she did multiple shows a year when it was points. She did earn it, but this is the first time she's actually won a pro show and gotten the Olympia qualification there. I thought hands down this was her best package. She looked amazing.
Her
Um,
posing routine was fun. We were out in the audience
yeah,
the pose, and she added in some
stallion.
throwback poses, a couple of wellness style poses, and
Uh-huh.
just it was just so much fun. She looked like she had so much fun with that routine, um,
Hmm.
and just so creative.
Yeah, I'm seeing, and Phoebe Hagen just talked about this on her YouTube channel
I
the other
saw
day.
that.
She
Yep.
said the stallion's coming back, and literally that used to be like my signature pose. Like that was my
Really?
favorite. Yeah. And when we changed to the other traditional posing, it kind of like threw off because my physique, like it makes my waist look a lot smaller when I do that stallion pose. And I used to love that pose. So it's kind of sad when it like basically got tossed out. But I'm
Yeah,
glad
how
it's
did
kind of
you
making a
know that
comeback.
it did they say that they didn't want to see it anymore, or was it just a trend that everyone quit doing eventually?
Yeah, it was so weird. It was like in 2000, I want to say like 17 or 18 where I saw the shift because when I got top five, when Chris won a pro card in 2018, I was still doing the stallion pose. I got top five at North Americans. And it was kind of like in that fall that it started to evolve. So in 2019 was when it was like a huge shift. Like everybody switched. And I remember watching the pro show that Jen Caban won in Arkansas that year. And she did not do the traditional. And then you started to see the Olympians not doing that traditional
Mhm.
stallion pose. And it kind of comes from the top down, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I've noticed like Jessica Wilson does it. Like a couple of pros are throwing it in their routine.
love
And you
it.
saw it at the Olympia a couple times.
Yeah,
Like it wasn't a
yep,
ton, and it's like
yep,
a transitional pose, but they're
yep.
pulling it back in, which I
It's
think is cool.
it's just so fun. I love to see people have fun with it. And speaking of you taking top five, tell us about the Bahamas. First of all, what did you place? What categories were you in? Were you
Yeah.
in more than one?
Yes, I was in more than one. However, it was a little strange.
Mhm.
He like some of the boxes got damaged for the awards or something. He told me about the day of the show. So they were supposed to do height class splits. They never did. Um, and then they only gave out for the masters, they only gave out three awards. So it was a little, I mean, that part of it, I'm like, I think that's a little unfair because
Yeah.
masters is the fastest growing category. And when you're doing a pro qualifier, you need to give medals to top five. Sorry, but top three, just because we're older, doesn't matter. Um, so yeah, I ended up actually getting sixth and 35 and 40. But
Oh,
even if I would have gotten fifth, I wouldn't have gotten a medal.
but you
Um,
did get a medal. I
I
saw you
did
with
get a
a medal.
medal, but it was an open.
Oh,
It was an open
nice.
E.
Okay.
There were height class splits there, so
Okay.
that made it
Gotcha.
a lot smaller. Um, but I will tell you that both my husband and I agreed there were probably 10 to 15 people in that show that if they do not go pro in the next year, I would be
Wow.
very, very surprised.
Amazing.
Nobody in my open class was in masters. Um, not many of them spoke English. I think I counted at least 24 countries that were represented.
Wow.
So everybody kind of around me wasn't speaking English. There were a couple people from Canada and a couple people from Florida. The person that actually won, she's like a three-time overall winner. Um, and I'm guessing she's in her 20s. Most of the people that placed above me were in their 20s. I'm like 44, just for reference. So you would have had to win the overall in the open. But yeah, like pretty much everybody in that overall pose down, I would say is going to go pro, like if I were a predictor. Even like top three in most of the classes, they look like IFBB pros. I mean, my husband Kevin was like, I don't say this, he's like, I've been around the sport for a long time, but he's like, literally, like, I don't even know how those judges picked some of the people because it was so stacked, like really high quality athletes. And I mean, I heard people from like Dubai, China, um, a lot of different, like really far away places.
Mhm.
We interviewed Lisa Reed. I mean, she was from Australia. So just NPC worldwide, there's not as many opportunities for a lot of people in countries
Mhm.
to get a pro card. So there were definitely a lot of like Caribbean islands represented, like Aruba, Curacao, like even people from France, Germany.
Mhm.
Um, so just all over the world. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
So, okay, so talk about you've competed overseas quite a few times.
Yeah.
Talk about the
Yeah.
differences, like maybe the little things that you wouldn't really think about that, because I mean, traveling for a show, you always have the flights, you always have time differences, even traveling within the United States can't, your body can retain water. You can have issues with things like that, how to pack things. But like, what are the things with traveling overseas that you've learned, little tips and tricks, or just obstacles you have to overcome doing overseas travel?
Yeah, first and foremost is getting through customs with your food. That has always been a
Oh,
challenge for me. It's
mhm.
been very difficult in several different countries. You really have to read the fine print because when you go out of domestic, when you have to get through customs of another country, there's a lot of countries that don't accept certain types of proteins, vegetables, fruits, and things like that. So, like for example, Rome, when I competed there at European Masters, that was the first year they had European Masters.
Mhm.
Um, that I really wasn't supposed to have brought protein into the country. Don't turn me in. But
That's fun.
Italy did not accept like you weren't really supposed to bring in meat,
Mm,
period. And I brought it into my checked bag. It made it through customs, like it
that's
went
amazing.
through the scanner. It didn't like no one said anything. I mean, there was a very high risk that I could have gotten it thrown out. In Spain, they lost our bags in New York. So when I went to Alicante, Spain, it had all my chicken in it. Luckily, we had booked an apartment with a kitchen. My husband went out and tried to like find chicken. All I had was my posing, like my actual suit for stage and my heels. And like when you go into a big time difference,
Mhm.
you lose track of time. And I got confused when I landed in Bologna and then we traveled to San Marino in Italy the first trip that I did. And I didn't realize that I would lose a day. Somehow I lost a day and I
Mhm.
missed check-in for women. And luckily, Dennis James was so nice to me. He was like, I was there for the men's check-in and the women's had already happened the night
Oh
before.
my
And he's like, you speak English, you're from the United States. All right, I'm gonna bring you up here.
God.
Yeah, and so like if there's a language barrier, so when I did San Marino in Italy, in Rome, and then in Alicante, Spain, those three, it was a big like you really have to bring pictures of things that you want for like your makeup and your hair and um that kind of stuff. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, and you have to be careful too, like about like your tanner just like exploding in your bag. So I would bring one in my carry-on bag and yeah, luckily
How do you
the
do that? Just like a travel size?
yeah, there's a travel size.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, like with the Alicante one, our bags got delivered. So we had flown to Madrid and we were there for like a day or something. And the bags like didn't come. We had to cook all this food. And then finally, like right before we left for Alicante, the bag showed up, which luckily it had all of my other clothes in it. Because I didn't have anything to wear except my bikini. So I'm like hanging out in the apartment like for days, like in Madrid. And like my husband's like trying to like at least find me underwear and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
all of this stuff, and you're with your husband, right? So that's
yeah,
cool and everything
he's
and
a world
reassuring.
traveler
But
too, which helps.
you're okay. And maybe you've done this so much. Are you just at that point just chill, like whatever happens will happen, or are you stressing out?
You just have to have you have to have the mentality that like it's an adventure
Hmm.
and you have to have like A, B, and C scenarios in mind. And like some of those are gonna fall through. Like
Yeah.
it's like an adventure to like get to the show. That's why it feels like a competition to me because I'm like, okay, I made it to this checkpoint. I made it to
Uh-huh.
this checkpoint. And like here I am here. And
My
so
God.
yeah, like for the Bahamas, you do have to have a passport. They
Hmm.
do have customs, but they're on Eastern Standard Time. So it wasn't a big time change. I didn't have jet lag.
Okay.
Um, they do have a United States like customs in Bahamas. There's only two countries that have United States customs in the actual country, which is
Mhm.
Bahamas and Dublin, Ireland are the only two countries that have it. So going through customs wasn't a big deal. I read ahead of time that you can bring meat as long as it was frozen. So, I hoped for the best that it wouldn't thaw
Yeah.
that much. The ironic thing is that when my bag showed up like a couple days later from New York into Madrid, my chicken was still frozen. I
Oh
didn't dare
my
eat it, but I was like, that's a little weird.
That's crazy.
I know, I know. So there's just like
So,
there's multiple things that you have to consider. And I was talking to Dan Ray, the photographer, and he was just saying how a lot of people don't do the Bahamas, even though it is close. Like if you live in Florida, that's a easy flight.
yeah.
But he said a lot of people don't have passports.
Oh, sure.
So,
Yeah.
but there's some like countries like Great Britain, you don't have to have a passport to get to the Bahamas because it's a former British, like,
Okay.
I don't know,
Yeah.
like principality, I think is what it's called.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you, when you travel overseas, I know you mentioned like having a lot of pictures and communicating with the tanners and stuff. Do you always do your own tan when you go overseas?
I didn't the first couple of times, just because I never trusted myself to do it. I didn't start doing my own tans until 2023.
Okay.
So I did it in Rome, or my husband helped me with it. Like when I first started competing in 2011, that's all we knew to do was like the Jantana, do it yourself. And then I had like a fiasco. So from then on, I would book like the professional tan,
Mm.
especially when a pro card's on the line. You're kind of like, okay, this needs to be done right. But like there was some weird scenarios. I mean, if you've never competed before, you obviously got to get used to like being naked in front of people when you get sprayed. But that took it to a whole nother level when I went to San Marino. My husband was like walking down some stairs and he was looking down and he's like, oh my gosh, there's a naked person there. And he was like, oh my gosh, that's my naked wife. And I had
Oh
no
my
idea that you could like look down from
God. Oh my
stairs.
gosh.
Like it was just like an open area. Like people could just look down and see like all these naked people. And I'm
Wow.
like, oh my gosh,
That's awesome.
that was nuts. But I mean, in Europe, they don't really care. Like they're just kind of, yeah,
So with traveling and like you mentioned like your tan exploding in your suitcase, like how do you
yeah.
prevent that from happening? How do you travel with your tanner? Does it ever get confiscated? Because that would be a nightmare.
Yeah, yeah. Again, like you can always do like a walk-in tan.
Oh,
Again,
sure.
that's like my plan B usually.
Yeah.
Um, but like plan A is put it in the checked bag, double like bag it, which
Yep.
mine always do explode a little bit, but it just
Okay.
leaks a little bit. So like
Okay.
most of it's in there, but the air pressure, it's just almost
Yeah.
impossible for that seal. For whatever reason, there's two seals on it, but it just will crack a little bit. So
Mhm.
I'll really wrap it in a couple gallon bags and then I'll put it in something that's insulated so that it won't like ruin the rest of my clothes. And then even the one that you carry on, like my one that I carry on sometimes explodes just because of the cabin pressure.
Mhm.
It just breaks that seal somehow. But again, like it can go through TSA because it's three
Oh,
ounces. You just have to
oh,
have it in
sure.
a Ziploc
Yeah.
and you can't
Okay.
exceed your other toiletry amounts. So you just have to be careful and strategic. Because I
Yeah.
know I was talking to Brittany and her and her boyfriend had to like say that, oh, these are his toiletries, these are mine, because
Huh.
you're only allotted so many 3 ounce items.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just so many nuances when it
So
comes to
I
travel.
feel like it just really depends on too where you're traveling, and maybe it's
Yeah.
different if you're flying. Like the last time I flew, I didn't even take my liquids out. They were just in my bag, and nobody
Yeah.
like cared. They had to
Yeah.
test my salt. They always
Yeah.
have to test your salt for drugs
Yeah.
or something.
And I mean, I'm TSA pre-check, so I shouldn't have to take my stuff out. I'm
Gotcha.
so used to my stuff getting taken out.
Yeah.
Salt is like, I have gotten my fingerprints like tested so many times for salt and like my salt
Yes.
container like rubbed.
Why is it the
Um,
salt?
because it's like it triggers something about like a bomb or something. I don't know. But yeah, I'll have like ice packs. I'll have ice in my water jug. As long as it's all frozen, it's fine. The
Huh.
Bahamas people
Okay.
made me throw it out. They're like,
Okay.
yes, but it's ice. So eventually it will melt and turn into water. And I was like,
That,
that's not the
that,
rule, but I'm gonna dump this in
yeah. Not
because
worth
you're telling
arguing
me
with
to,
you.
yeah. I'm like, I can just get ice after I get through security. So yeah.
So, Bahamas, have you gotten feedback yet?
Yes, I did from the head judge. He basically just said like my posing was really good, my overall look, that I meant for the sport, but that I just need
Oh.
to grow. I mean, I knew that. This was one of those shows that so I needed to have like this past year to be about like the weight loss and like losing the 30 pounds. So kind of getting on stage in July, August was more of just like a like, obviously the WBFF is looking for something different than the NPC. So that
Mhm.
was a different adventure. But when I did the NPC show in August, I knew that I didn't have enough muscle. I just
Mhm.
wanted to get qualified to try to work my way towards this goal, in 3 months, and see how much muscle I could put on. I know I still need to put on some size, but yeah, I gained about 4 to 5 pounds of muscle according to my DEXA scan. Um, and
You've
it
been
was just
training
a
hard. I feel like your training has changed.
yeah. I
Yeah.
also was like fed well too because
Okay.
I had dieted and done so much cardio. Like you knew how much it took, like
Yeah.
110 minutes of cardio
Yep.
every day
Yep.
and like 900 to 1,000 calories, like
Yeah.
really low fats. Like
Yep.
I was dieting hard and my body, you could see it on my body. It was like kind of like a mess. Like it
Mm-hmm.
looked like inflamed and kind of just like skinny fat, if that's
Mm-hmm.
so. I was like 130 on stage then, but like once I had, 4 more pounds of muscle and like a different composition, we reversed me out of the show, built up my calories, and I was at pretty high, like for me, like dieting,
Mm-hmm.
like 1,600, 1,900 for a good
Come
amount of
on.
time. Yeah. And like,
Yeah.
right away, right after the show, we got up to 1,400 and kind of like built our way up, went way down in cardio. I didn't get nearly as close. Like the max of cardio I ever did was like 45 minutes. So, that supports muscle growth, my training intensity. Beastified had just kind of opened like in July, at the beginning of July. So that culture has really helped me to like transform and like,
Yeah.
Savannah
Yep.
would meet me
Yep.
too, but like just that whole environment. I think
Mhm.
like iron sharpens iron when you're around people that just
Oh,
like
for sure.
level you up. It makes a big difference. So
So one other question about that. Do you think, I mean, you've been competing for so long, and so to get that feedback, how you definitely are in the right sport, that's super cool and reassuring, but that you need to keep growing. Do you think since you've started the whole sport as a whole, like the category of bikini is just getting bigger, and so now
oh
it's
yeah,
like you just got to catch up with it
definitely.
almost? Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, my physique back in the day, like
Yeah.
I would have been considered very muscular,
Hmm.
you know. Um, I mean, I would be considered a figure competitor back in the
Hmm.
day, back in when I started, because I got third when I did figure and I weighed 115 pounds and I was five
Wow.
seven. I
Yeah.
mean, the figure girls of then, like if they crossed over into bikini now, they would look less muscular
Hmm.
than the bikini pros do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I wonder then, it kind of follow-up question to that. Now that they're coming up with more and more drug tested shows
Yeah.
for pro qualifiers, and then even I think for pro shows, do you think they're attempting from top down to kind of rein it in a little bit?
I think that's the goal ultimately. Um, like I said, I think that's a huge push just in the fact that they're adding more pro qualifiers, they're adding more regional competitions. I mean, I kind of thought that that was what was going to happen, that I would not be surprised if they add even more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it would be really nice if they had like a drug tested Olympia, to be honest, because it's
Wow.
like I
They
mean, I don't know if
will?
they will do that, but like
Oh my
if they
gosh.
came up with a Masters Olympia,
True.
and that one's evolving already because it started out as an invitation and now you have to qualify by getting first in a 40 plus pro show to qualify for that one in Tokyo. And I mean, if they're looking at those trends and like they want to build masters, so they're making an Olympia for that, like to me, that's the natural progression. Has anybody said anything about that to me? No. This is like coming from my own brain, but why are they having so many regional shows if it was just to qualify for Ben Weeder? You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it didn't shock me that they came up with this one that's in the spring in Pittsburg where the NPC originates. I would I would be shocked if it didn't continue to move in that path. And, you know, for a natural athlete that qualifies for the Olympia, it's really hard for them to compete.
Yeah.
Like when that's
Yeah.
the only one that's drug tested. It's still kind of,
It's a
I think
fun
that
experience.
that
It's cool
needs
to
to be
say that
like
you're,
figured out.
yeah, Olympia qualified, but really, I mean, when it really comes down to it, can you expect to be competitive at that level? Maybe if you had
Yeah.
insane genetics, but
Yeah.
probably not actually, you know?
Yeah. And I mean, Lana Dunbar, like she has phenomenal
Mhm.
genetics and she looks great. Brittany Schulman looks great too. She won the Ben Weeder last year and did the Olympia this year. And it's like she does look a little smaller, compared to the other ones. And so I don't know. I mean, it's
Yeah.
something to just think about. Like it always
Yeah,
like goes through my brain about like hopefully they'll do if they're doing more pro shows that are drug tested, then like what would be that next step for those athletes? I feel like they should have a different opportunity. So
that's really interesting. I guess we'll see how
yeah,
our
hint,
sport
hint,
evolves.
NBC, listen
Right?
to this podcast.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, it's always going to be a very extreme sport and a highly disciplined sport. I don't think anyone has to worry about that. Like,
yeah,
you don't have to think about it going like backwards or anything. It's just kind of leveling the playing field and taking it back down to
yeah,
hard work and discipline. And I don't know. I'm all for
yeah.
that.
I mean, ultimately, it always goes by genetics anyway. And
Sure.
every person that I've ever trained that's gone pro, um, you know, two bikini, like one fitness, one wheelchair, like I've trained them and they've been natural and they became natural pros. But it's like to go to that next level, I just think that that part of it, like you can get so far on genetics and like optimal, like bringing the most out of your genetics. Like if you
Mhm.
have pretty high genetic propensity and you have the right nutrition and training, and then you can go very far in the sport. But I think to a certain point, like there's a certain stopping point where it like, once you get past that genetic ceiling and like all the optimization, it makes a different like
Yep.
a different experience, without going
Yeah.
too far into the weeds with that. But
Well, that
um
would be really cool if they did end up doing a natural Olympia.
yeah, yeah. But I digress. I know you had other questions, I think,
But
but
that was kind of it, as long as like we kind of talked about how you plan to improve going into your improvement season
yeah,
and building more muscle. I did want to mention too, unless you have more to talk about with this, I had one other thing that just popped into my head.
sure.
Did you see that Sebum placed second in
Yeah.
bodybuilding? I
Well,
can't have a bodybuilding show and not mention that.
yeah, I mean,
Insane.
he lost to the guy that got fourth at the Olympia. So
Yeah.
it'd be really hard to like change your entire physique from classic being the winner of six
Oh,
times to like, I mean, I don't think if Martin would have showed up that he would have definitely won, obviously, like because he just looks insane in
yeah.
general. But
Which would have been crazy because wouldn't that have qualified him to do the Open Olympia?
yeah. Yeah. But I
I'll
mean,
retire.
but as a pro, you're allowed to cross over in anything. So like,
Oh, sure. So
you
he already
know,
would have. Yeah.
like he could have already done that. And if you're Mr. Olympia, then of something, you can always go back to Olympia without getting qualified. So like Angelica Tischer
Yeah.
qualified for life. Ashley Kay qualified for life,
Yep.
Lisa
Yep.
Bacchini qualified for life. So like they don't
So
have to
cool.
place or qualify for the Olympia every year. Like
Yep.
Maureen,
Yep.
Jen, like
Yep.
they can come back. Now Laura Lee can come back anytime she wants. She doesn't have to compete for years and then she can still compete at the Olympia because she's Miss Bikini Olympia
Yeah. Yeah.
for a
Well, I
year.
just mentioned that because I saw it and I was like, that is so
Yeah.
cool. Huge
Yeah.
news.
Yeah. So I did want to mention is this because I think our listeners, like, I think they might appreciate some of this stuff, like when it comes to traveling and going with your family.
Mhm.
Um, there was like, so first of all, that venue is amazing. The Atlantis is like the biggest water park in the world. It's on the Caribbean Ocean. So you can just walk right to the ocean. You can walk to all these different like um, pools, and then they've got all these different water slides. They have a water slide that takes you down a tunnel into shark infested waters. I mean, it's insane. So it's definitely like a thing to do. If you do that show, though, I had a lot of FOMO because my family was like, I was so glad that they were enjoying themselves. But like Friday and Saturday, they get to
Yeah.
enjoy the water park, like the sunshine, and you're in a tan, so you can't really go. So make sure if you do that show, you at least give yourself Sunday or some one of the days to like actually enjoy it because it's an epic resort. It was like the coolest venue I've ever been at in my life. So
Very cool.
it had like aquatic stuff and all that. So just a tip there. And then I also I had a client compete this weekend, and I just wanted to mention this because I feel like she's a true novice, and I think that there's, like a lot of our listeners could be true novice and maybe thinking about competing. And I think it's
Mhm.
just important to understand that not every show order is the same.
Mhm.
And this expediter made my client feel like she should have known what the order was as a true novice, and he wouldn't tell her when they go on. All she knew was when bikini went. She didn't know when like her class, her novice class, her open, her true novice. And he was like, let me just tell you this right now. Every show's the same. And that is absolutely false. I know this as a promoter. I could set the schedule to whatever I wanted it to be. And every show I go to, like masters could go at a certain time, like true novice could go at a certain time. Usually open goes last when it comes to that kind of stuff, but you never know. So I think it's really important that you advocate for yourself as an athlete because you paid money. You are the customer. These expediters, these show promoters, they deserve to tell you. So for your peace of mind that you know when you're going on stage so that you don't miss your class or that you know when to line up and things like that. So
Yeah.
I think that's important. And then another thing is to, I just always double check the list, make sure you're in the right class because these scorekeepers make mistakes and sometimes things get shuffled around. Or like if you add a class, you bring cash at check-in. Maybe you registered for the show to avoid the late fee in one class, and then you wanted to kind of like add classes at check-in, which is totally doable with cash. But just double check the next day, like make them show you the list to like see where your name's on it and things
Mhm.
like that. Just PSA for that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention too, which I thought was like something that I had never experienced. So because this was the NPC worldwide show and you had to be qualified in the open to be eligible, I don't, maybe I already said this, but like they had a true novice. So all the people that competed in True Novice at this NPC Worldwide show had won their open class at a
Yeah.
qualifier or they had gotten second place in open.
Not true
So,
novice.
yeah, so he was saying that True Novice for the NPC Worldwide. So if you've never competed in the NPC Worldwide, then you're
Okay.
eligible for True Novice. So like you could
Mhm.
have competed for 10 years but never done NPC Worldwide and be a True Novice in NPC Worldwide. So that was a little strange to me.
So
Just thought
like I
I'd point
could
that
go
out.
in true novice at
Yeah,
NPC
you would be
Worldwide.
true novice. Yeah.
Interesting.
And you could
Huh.
also be novice,
Yeah.
even though you've won your
That's
class. Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
A lot of the shows now are saying that you have to have won an overall to be considered not a novice.
Huh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then
I
I
think,
would, yeah.
yeah. So you'd be a novice there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So yeah, just food for thought. Just, I thought,
That's
I
interesting.
don't know. I feel like these last couple of weeks, I've just learned new things about the NBC. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's the sport's always evolving. So it
Yeah.
just,
I
these
don't
are
know
good
why
things
that you
to,
would want to enter one of those classes if you were trying to get a pro card anyways, though, unless it was just if you wanted to be on stage more.
yeah.
Because
I
you can
mean,
get a pro card
I
from their
couldn't get a pro card for 30 or 40. I just wanted more stage time because
sure.
I
Sure.
I feel like it's valuable to like
Yeah.
practice my posing on stage. There was one of
Totally.
my classes that I was up there for, I'm not kidding you, 20 minutes. Like I had to hold
Wow.
it for endurance, like because not many people had done their individuals and it was like
Oh,
they had us
oh,
on
wow.
stage while they were doing the individuals. I was like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, like talk about a workout.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh. That's
So,
crazy.
anyways.
Well, that is so interesting. So much news and little details that you don't think about and new things that come up from different promoters and shows and super interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited to go to LA with you this weekend. So we'll have
Yeah,
to share our stories about our fun times in Anaheim here next week.
definitely.
So,
Definitely.
all right. If you'd like to find us on Instagram, you can find us at Purple Life Podcast or at Glam Girl Bikini. And if you would like to apply for coaching with either one of us, you can go to glamgirlbikini.com and hit the get started button. Thanks for listening, guys.